I think people will join while we're talking, and we have this recorded. So, welcome to the New York Information Security Meetup slash the Cyber Guild. It's August 27th, and it is lunchtime here on the East Coast. Just a few minutes past noon, we overcome some of the technical issues. So, I have the great pleasure to introduce Sivan Tehila, and it's really exciting because. I'm trying to get more women to participate in my events, and Sivan is actually very entrenched in the cybersecurity community, and specifically in the New York City area. And then you founded an organization to support, kind of women in cybersecurity, right? So why don't we jump in and talk a bit about that, and then we kind of walk through like your experience and what you've done so far and how you got to where you are today. That'd be great.
Yeah, so I think Cyber Ladies New York City is one of my favorite projects. And when I moved here a year and a half ago, I understood that I realized that there are not enough women in the industry. I thought about it earlier while I was serving in the Israeli Defense Forces. So it was a process, but I thought it's an opportunity for me to get to know more women here in New York, and also to think how I can help women to join the cybersecurity industry, and how we can create a supportive community for all of us together. So it's been a year and a half, and we have had around 10 very successful events. We do technical workshops, webinars, and we had a very successful mentorship program during COVID, and we're going to launch our next program in October. So that's another very exciting thing for me. And again, it's a nonprofit organization, so everyone asks me all the time, how do you have time? Why do you do that? And I really believe that this is something that makes me, I'm going to mute this, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Everyone, very surprised sometimes to hear that I do that, even though I have many other projects that I'm working on, but I really believe that it's not that I'm learning a lot from all the women that we have in our community, and I feel that's a win-win situation, a win-win project. So I welcome everyone to join. And another question that I've been asked all the time is if it's only relevant for women. So I'm trying to bring women as role models in our events, and women are usually the presenters, but it's open for everyone. So men are also welcome.
I was about to ask that question, but you beat me to it. So this is great. We all wear many hats, I think, these days. I think a lot of people have side projects where they have a day job and they're working on some other things, and you do find the time. And I think
you do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's great. It's a great feeling actually to give back to the community and be part of it. And I think that actually having more women and diversifying the industry is benefits us all. So you served in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, for so many years. Maybe you can talk about kind of start from there, how you got in, what was your kind of the first role. And I think it's so cool, right, that you have such a military background, because people here typically, when they hear military, they think people going out there and jumping off planes and doing all kinds of, but there's also a very big section, a large section of the military that does cybersecurity, right? So maybe you can kind of walk us through some of the background and how you got to where you are.
Sure. So I joined the Israel Defense Forces in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
In 2006, and in 2016 I retired. It was 10 years that I served. I never thought I'm gonna work in cybersecurity. If you would ask me as a young adult after I graduated from high school, I don't think that was the path I would choose. I think that the Army actually opened this opportunity for me, and I fell in love with that profession. Working in cybersecurity and in the Army, it was so fascinating, and I managed many operations, and I find it a very interesting profession. And I never thought I'm going to stay for 10 years in the Army. That's also something that I kind of decided, like from one role to another, that if I want to do that or not. So I served for 10 years. I was a cybersecurity officer. I worked for the intelligence corp. I participated in many operations, and the two main roles, that I feel that I contributed the most and that I have learned the most from my military service were the head of the information security unit of the intelligence corp, and then the CISO of the research and analysis division. And again, there were not enough women. I don't think it's because that's how the Army choose people. I think many times young girls choose different professions in the Army. So again, and also most of them don't want to stay for a long time, for a long service. So I think I had this opportunity, and I've learned a lot, and it was a very good way to again experience in this field. And then when I retired, it was very easy for me to find a job because I had this background. And as you said, when I'm saying here to people in the US that I served for 10 years in the Army, so the first thing they say is like, cheers for that. Or, people are very excited about that. In Israel, it's kind of, every second person served as an officer in the Army, but here it's, I think people are very excited about that.
It's interesting. So was it the 8200 unit that everybody talks about, or is it something else?
8200 is one of the elite intelligence unit. I was the head of the information security unit of all the intelligence forces units. So I was like one of those who guided the 8200 unit in terms of information security, policies and strategies. But yeah, this is one of the units I was working.
The reason I'm asking is like a lot of people are, they hear 8200. There's a lot of startups out there, right? Especially Israeli startups. And it seems like everybody's ex 8200. And I was like, and I'm thinking to myself, I was like, how big is that unit that they have all those like thousands of people that they said they're from 8200. And so that's why I asked specifically. So you did 10 years there, which is amazing. And then you joined the private sector, right? So why didn't you just stick around and do another 10 years? Why did you decide to venture out into the private sector?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think I felt that I did enough, and I wanted to try something else. I still stayed, by the way. I worked for defense industries for RAFAEL and for Israel Airways, where I built the security operations center there. But I don't really have, a reason. I can say, as a woman, I gave birth to my daughter at this point, and then I decided not to come back after the maternity leave. But that's not really the main reason. I was curious about the private sector. I was curious to do other things, and I felt that there are so many things to do out there and to learn out there. So I decided to retire, and I think it was a good decision for me. I had an opportunity to work for RAFAEL for 2 years there. I investigated cyber crimes, and that was another very interesting aspect in cybersecurity. And in Israel Airways, I think it was one of the first security operations centers that combined OT and IT systems. So that was another very interesting and challenging experience for me. I find the OT security I think it's fascinating to see how you can actually monitor and secure those environments, but still find a way to keep them safe enough.
So OT, just for the folks that are on here and not familiar with the terms, what does it stand for?
OT, it's operational technology. So, for example, in the railways, we have the signaling system, which usually those are very old systems that no one really knows how to monitor. And now many trains are electric trains, and they use more cloud-based infrastructures and software that you need to update remotely. Mm-hmm. So we understood that now in our age, we have to monitor those critical infrastructures as well. And that's something that, again, Israel Airways realized, and they decided to build a security operations center. And I think, it's something that we all have to think about, and we usually don't. I mean, I'm traveling, I'm using the subway here in New York all the time. I'm thinking about the things I was doing in Israel Airways, but sometimes it's just simple things. If someone can change the destination in the passenger's information system, it can cause chaos. And and we can do it, and we've seen that you can do that if there are no. For example, if we have the passengers Wi-Fi in the train, and we have all the other systems that's connected directly to the signaling system, we need to think how to make sure that no one can get access from the passenger's Wi-Fi and change destinations, or even cause a real damage, or change the original path for that specific train. So that's only one example, but it is fascinating, and it's the same idea for airplanes and other critical infrastructures industry.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking about the same thing sometimes when I travel, and the infrastructure sometimes is so old, as you mentioned. I'm assuming that the subway is using some pretty old systems, and maybe it is security by obscurity. Maybe because it's so old, some of the code is not available out there. But there's other type of infrastructure like even the transit, the system that controls the stoplights, the dams, all across the country, and there's a lot of these things. So this is kind of a part of a SCADA system. So, and they're talking about specifically about potentially like a cyber 9/11, right? Where potentially someone can go in and make some changes to the to OT systems, maliciously. So fast forward, you had an opportunity to come to New York and join a startup, right? Perimeter 81.
Yeah.
As you're director of security architecture, right?
Yeah, so I'm director of solution architecture at Perimeter 81. I thought the private sector would be a less, calm and easy, but I think that I understood, especially now during COVID. I think it's the first time since I retired that I actually felt the same pressure that I had, in the Army, because I felt that we had so many customers that we wanted to help them to move, to help them with the transition of to cloud infrastructure, working remotely, how to secure that, and I really felt we're helping them to win the war of COVID. IT managers were so confused. It's for many of them, it was the first time that they actually practiced their business continuity plan. So they've never done that before. We had to help them to think with them how to redesign their network, how to implement our solution, but also how to integrate it with their own existing solutions. And there are many challenges now when you work remotely. And for IT managers, I think it's mainly the fact that they have less control and less visibility of what's going on in their network. Another thing that I find fascinating, and I actually wrote an article about that. It's going to be published very soon. It's about how we feel safe at home. I took behavioral economics models, and I was trying to think in terms of security. We feel more safe when we are working from home, and many times, things that we were more alerted, or we would more pay attention when we're working in an office. Now we're kind of less care about that, or we less pay attention. And we also have our home network, and it's usually not something that we, especially if you're not a security person, you're not thinking about your password for the Wi-Fi. You don't think to have your own DNS filtering or things like that. Mm-hmm. So I think it requires from IT managers to rethink about, first of all, about their policies, how they manage their policies now when people working remotely. And another thing is how you train, and how you change your training and awareness plan or training and awareness program with your employees. Because from one end, you want them to be able to work remotely at any time, and you don't really want them to be so worried about security. But from the other end, there are many challenges, and as I said, home network, IoT devices that we have at home, Alexa, and other things that we don't really know how people manage that remotely. So I find it challenging. I think I do feel I still have a mission in my work, and that's what I love about cybersecurity in general. Help people, help companies to improve their security posture, and make sure that their resilience, and that they are ready for the next generation of cyber attacks.
Mm-hmm. So how does the Perimeter 81, and where does the kind of the name come from? And what do you guys do? Like, what's your how do you protect organizations? Maybe you can kind of cover that in a nutshell. That'd be great.
Yeah, of course. So Perimeter 81, it's actually a name of another intelligence unit. So one of our founders served there, and I also worked with this unit. So that's where it comes from. It's usually the technological unit for the intelligence corps. And what we're doing in the perimeter comes from, the fact that we usually try to defend the perimeter, or maybe I should say that in the past we thought as IT managers and CISOs that we need to focus on the perimeter. But today we understand that it's just not enough. We have too many environments. We're working from everywhere, and the attackers also aware of those changes. And the challenges of the digital transformation age. What we're doing is protecting not only the perimeter by replacing your traditional legacy VPN, but we're also protecting inside the network, or we create microsegmentation of the network in order to prevent lateral movement of an unauthorized user. But also, we give you an option to manage policies for applications. Very soon we're going to have an option to manage policies for the network level. So we're not going to replace only the traditional legacy VPN, but also we're going to replace the traditional firewalls. And now we see, and I think that what I also find interesting is that many industries that in the past never thought about moving to the cloud, or to use cloud-based services and cloud-based infrastructures are doing it right now. But when you move to those kind of services, you need to also think again about your security solutions, and what do you have in place, and if it's relevant for the new world. So instead of managing and configure manually all those legacy old solutions, we provide a very user-centric solution, a very easy solution for IT managers. And on top of that, we also give the IT managers and the CISOs the option to gain full visibility of their network and the activity of their users. And I don't know. I would love to hear from you. What do you think about this change? I mean, I hear a lot from customers, and I see this transition to cloud, and I think it's very interesting. You also work in the industry, so I would love to hear what do you.
Yeah, I think that